This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Knowing you could be saving money for the things you really want, like that dream house or ride, is a great feeling. That's why the State Farm Personal Price Plan can help you save when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling, just another way to save with the Personal Price Plan. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
Prime delivery is fast. How fast are we talking? We're talking puzzle toys and lick pad delivered so fast you can get this puppy under control fast. Pee pads, cooling mat, peg hammer, fast and fast. And those training TREATS, faster than you can say sit fast. Fast, free delivery. It's on Prime.
Unfiltered discussions. Unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Hi, welcome. Here's what you're going to learn on tonight's program. I say that every evening, but tonight I mean it. I also mean it the other evenings. Anyway, why are so many millennial parents calling it quits after just 2 kids? It doesn't seem to only be the costs of having children. It's changing priorities, delayed parenthood, and the desire to give more to those kids with less. In 10 minutes' time, we unpack the surprising reasons behind the quiet retreat from baby number 3, and how culture shifts when people have less kids. After that, you may know someone who's pretty far gone believing in climate conspiracies. But have you heard this one? The shadowy government is controlling the weather using secret geoengineering technology. Well, it turns out there have been secret government projects to control the weather. Just not some of the wilder ones you hear about on TikTok today. We'll have an expert in analyzing conspiratorial thinking to discuss the history of weather control and what you should really believe. That'll be halfway through the hour. That is merely some of tonight's great lineup. We'll tell you more about the show as it progresses, but for now, let's jump in.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
And in people being caught naked on their lawn by the all-seeing eyes of a big tech company and then suing for the pleasure news, we go to Argentina with foreign correspondent Tony Five live on the scene in his apartment in London, England. Tony, welcome to the show.
David, always a pleasure. Argentina is lovely at this time of year. I can tell you that from London, England. You would always slightly think that Google invades your privacy, David. But how would you feel if it was to invade your private parts?
Ooh, I like that pun. I wouldn't mind. I don't care if people see me naked. But here's what happened. In Argentina, a Google Street View car, that's like the car that drives through the street capturing photos of buildings and such, captured a naked Argentine copper, as you say, or police officer. They posted it on the internet. Sometimes they blur things, like when there's a car, they'll blur the license plate. Sometimes if there's a house that an owner doesn't want on that platform, they can blur the whole house. For whatever reason, they didn't blur this guy. He was embarrassed about it, and now he's suing.
David, this is 8 years in the making. This apparently occurred in 2017, but it was only, the appeal happened in July 2025, so just this month. And the judge ruled that they blatantly violated this man's privacy and his dignity, which is quite interesting, even though the opposing court said he shouldn't have been walking around naked behind his 2-meter fence.
Yeah, like if you're so worried about that, can't your neighbors just snap a pic and then send it to the local media? He did live in a small town of 45,000. He claims he was ridiculed so much that he would only leave his house to go work as a cop. But that's kind of a public-facing position. So it's not like he was avoiding the public completely.
Well, I mean, it's a pubic-facing job, but then obviously...
Well done. Yeah, no, I see what you did there.
You like that? Somebody's working on the puns today, my friend. Somebody's there, number pun. But yeah, he won... Google had to pay him an equivalent of about $12,500, which is a hell of a lot of money in Argentina, in Argentinian currency for that sort of area. And good for him. The little man took on Google and he won. And I don't say little because... he was little. I mean...
Yeah.
I mean the small man. I don't mean small. I don't want to get into trouble. He sued Google. I don't want him to sue us.
Yeah, alleged. It's all allegedly. This whole story is alleged. We're alleging this story. I have friends who've been captured on Google Street View, and they did something funny. Like at the beginning, my friend was walking with his girlfriend, and then 5 seconds later, she made like a really mean face, and he was like running away crying. And the 2 snaps as the car went down the street captured both those moments. It was very funny, although the faces were blurred, so it kind of ruined it somewhat.
But does the Google car, does it actually, whenever you see it, is it constantly working? So is that how they knew, like, it would be captured? Because I do see it sometimes, not a lot anymore. I used to see it all the time, but yeah.
I suppose they've got to go park somewhere at the end of the day. So if they're just driving home, no, it's not on. But yeah, you can always assume it's on. You should definitely flip it the bird. You should definitely do something funny if the car goes by. But just be careful. You know, if you're naked in your lawn, you might want to run into the house when you see this car coming.
I imagine that's quite a good job, right? Just driving around for Google. And you could tell everybody you're a Google employee.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, you would be. You would if you're driving the car. Of course, if you are a Google employee, you can say you're a Google employee.
Yeah, but then most people assume you're a Google employee. You're on like billions and billions of money, and essentially you're an Uber driver with a camera on your car.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it's like working at Apple. Do you just sell the phones, or are you like at the headquarters in Cupertino? I'm David Cupertino, by the way, designing the phone.
Yeah, exactly. You're Johnny Ivy, or you're sort of like Johnny who works in this local store.
Anyway, this guy, he took on Google, he won, and he got his tush, as we say, taken off the internet. So power to him, I suppose.
Good for him. Do you know what? Power to the people, my friend. Mr. Argentinian bum man, please. Go for it. Tony 5 supports your endeavor.
All right. Argentinian bum man and Tony 5 support each other, or at least Tony supports him.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. And in things happening a little bit too late in life, but it never being too late to have a bar mitzvah news, we go to a 101-year-old veteran who has now become a man. Tony 5 reports live from the scene in his apartment. Tony, well, you're already here, but welcome again.
Thank you, my friend. I mean, the becoming of a man at 101 is, and this guy's a veteran, he's fought wars, and he's become a man at 101. Now, as you know, I am not very familiar with the Jewish religion. I don't really know the cultures and the traditions. I walk a fine line between offensive and defensive and on the fence. But is it true that at your bar mitzvah, you get circumcised?
No, Tony, God.
Right.
No.
Because I thought that would have been really weird for the 101-year-old guy. Explain to me, is it just a big party?
It is basically a big party. It's the first time you read from the scripture, the Torah or the Bible or whatever, and you get up in front of your community in a synagogue, presumably, and you read for the first time. And you can do it, I think you're eligible to do it at age 13.
Right.
You know, in biblical times, when people only lived to age 14 because of, I don't know, the malaria and the rats and the tuberculosis and the leprosy. The Romans. Also, yeah, they played a big role.
Massive. Mate, I can't believe you just missed out the biggest killer, Romans.
Number one natural killer of people, the Romans. People didn't live very long. So 13, I think, seemed a reasonable choice to say, hey, you're a man. And so after you read in front of your community, they would say you're a man. And it's this big joke. I was bar mitzvahed at 13. It's this big joke. You can say, wow, I'm finally a man, as your voice cracks and you're barely in puberty.
Gotcha.
But this man did it. I guess he always wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And he was a D-Day veteran. Life got in the way. But at 101, he did his bar mitzvah. His family was there. His great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren, or some, maybe one or two less greats than that, they were there bearing witness. And it was just a very joyous occasion.
It's just such a feel-good story. I guess in some respects, it means you're never too late to do certain things. And this guy's proven it, and he's wanted to do it. And I guess like all his family must be so proud of him. And it's if he sort of organized it, I guess it's like a real celebration, right? People come to the synagogue. And what do you guys do? After he's done the reading and I'm guessing blessings or prayers, is it like a big party? Is there food involved, dancing, music? What kind of thing?
Yeah, you dance around in a big circle. You get the bar mitzvah boy or bat mitzvah girl up on a chair, and you lift them in a chair like you've seen in the movies.
Yes,
and it's a very joyous occasion. And the guy held his 101st bar mitzvah year or whatever. He had it in the ancestral homeland of the Jewish people, Florida, which is a great place to have a bar mitzvah.
Obviously, yeah. Your predecessor always liked a crocodile and a cocktail.
Yes. Well, I suppose only ancestral to the point of air conditioning and Boca Raton, but that's a conversation for another day.
Right.
Tony, maybe if you convert to Judaism, we could throw you a bar mitzvah.
To be honest with you, I like the idea. Any idea of a party is good. I mean, I'll convert to anything. Judaism, paganism, anything ending with an ism, racism, I'd love it.
Well, some of those isms, maybe not. Tony, what a pleasure it was having you on the show. We'll have you back later for Conspiracy Corner as we talk the conspiracies of climate control.
Oh, I can't wait.
Up next, why are millennials not having more than 2 kids? Answers in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
This message is sponsored by Greenlight. With school out, summer is the perfect time to teach our kids real-world money skills they'll use forever. Greenlight is a debit card and the #1 family finance and safety app used by millions of families, helping kids learn how to save, invest, and spend wisely. Parents can send their kids money and track their spending and saving, while kids build money confidence and skills in fun ways. Start your risk-free Greenlight trial today at greenlight.com/Spotify. That's greenlight.com/Spotify.
We're here because your heightened awareness deserves heightened entertainment. The last show with David Cooper.
Why are so many millennial parents stopping at 2 kids? Well, it's not just about money, it's values, timing, exhaustion. There's a changing vision of what a family should look like amongst the millennial generation. So is there a case to be made against baby number 3? That is what we'll discuss here with Julia Pugachevsky, a senior health reporter at Business Insider who recently wrote about this. Julia, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with the premise. Since when did having 3 kids be seen as a luxury? I thought sometime in the past, maybe in the 80s, that was kind of the baseline.
Yeah, definitely. I would say even now, having 2 kids feels like a luxury. And there are a few different reasons for that. But essentially, yeah, you're right that if you look at, for example, boomers or Gen X, having 2 kids was seen statistically as more of the norm or the ideal, having at least 2. So that, even if you look at like famous TV sitcoms, right, you're used to seeing even more than 2 kids very often. But yeah, now it's for the millennials who are having kids to begin with, it seems to be on average, I forget what it was, but technically under 2 kids. If you round up, it's 2. But yeah.
I'm no mathematician, statistician, graphometician, if these are even words, but if everybody has slightly less than 2 kids, doesn't the population decline?
Yeah, that's essentially, the debate, not just here, everywhere we're seeing a shrinking birth rate. And essentially, yeah, that's sort of the concern. I think partly, again, because 2 kids was considered the norm in previous generations. It's not that the millennials who are having 2 kids are necessarily being frowned upon as much. It's just that you have millennials who are also not having kids at all. And that's become more of a norm as well. So it's sort of, it feels as if the millennials who are choosing to have kids, now there's almost this pressure to have even more than what was considered standard, only a few generations ago.
I had a psychologist on the show about a month or 2 ago who made the case for childless versus child-free. I myself, a millennial with no plans to have kids. Why do you think my generation is genuinely wanting fewer or no kids? Are we just doing economic damage control? Is it because we can't afford it? We don't want it? What are some of the reasons people are saying they want fewer kids?
Well, definitely, I think if you can't have this conversation without talking about affordability, whether it's housing, whether it's childcare services, daycare services. I remember reading an article about the New York mayoral election and how every single candidate mentioned childcare as one of their main policy proposals. They all had some sort of, policy addressing it because it is such a huge issue. And there's been a mass exodus of parents leaving New York because things like housing and daycare are just astronomically expensive. And, also in the US, I could say, you have more people moving to different states, for example, or people living further apart. You don't necessarily always have even grandparents or family nearby to help you. So those are just a few of the factors of just the logistical difficulties of having kids. But I think The other factor, even with millennials who choose to have 2 kids maximum or even 1 kid maximum, is just different standards of parenting, or wanting more time with their kids, or wanting to feel comfortable. They're afraid that if they have more kids, that they'll be more financially stretched, or that their children will not receive enough time or care. Or if they're choosing not to have kids at all, they might feel, I don't feel qualified to be a parent. I don't feel like I'll enjoy it. I don't want to damage my child if I don't fully want a kid. So you have all these choices and considerations now that are a big part of why people are choosing to have kids, or just having fewer of them, or not at all.
I feel like the old narrative, the dream, was 2 little ones, a dog, a golden retriever. That's what TV sold us. That was kind of the gold standard of generations past. Now it feels like 1 kid max, maybe a cat. What does this shift say about us culturally in the direction we're going?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I'll say from personal experience, even my friends who, are doing very well off, doing really well, they seem to they're happy with 2 kids at most, and they're sort of done there. It's a kind of, I don't think I know anyone who has more than 2 kids, actually. This is talking about people in different states with completely different careers, different financial setups. So yeah, I think we're prioritizing more comfort in general. And I think even with parenting standards, for example, I know gentle parenting has been in the news a lot, and it's sort of a trend that's dying down because parents maybe feel like they went too far and it's an overreach and maybe not that great. But I think that the feeling behind what motivated gentle parenting is still there, which is that parents, are really aware of how they can impact children, how they can, how especially early childhood can impact children. And I think, I think that really impacts what families end up looking like. For example, we talk so much about eldest daughter syndrome, right? That's very buzzy. And a lot of people worry, okay, if I have, for example, 4 or 5 kids, those responsibilities are now going to at least somewhat fall on my oldest kids. And they worry about that, and they take those considerations in place. So I think the gut response sometimes is to worry, oh my gosh, people aren't having big families like they used to, without thinking about, why are people making these decisions? I don't think it necessarily comes from a bad place.
I feel like someone's fertility as it comes to age, or a couple's fertility as it comes to age, is their own private business. I hate how we judge publicly. We make assumptions publicly about people's fertility, but we got to talk about it on like a cultural level. Fertility timing. People wait longer to have kids now. Does biology kind of quietly shut that door on the 2nd or the 3rd kid before economics or preferences get a say?
Yeah, definitely. That's last year for 2024, there were some stats on the birth rate slightly going up in the US. And by slightly, I mean 1%, just about. But the biggest shift was among moms 40 and up. So, and the other big ones were late 30s and mid 30s, early 30s. So definitely even in your early 30s, your fertility changes. So that can definitely impact, when you have the 2nd kid, or if you have a 2nd kid or a 3rd kid. It impacts things like potentially needing IVF services or paying for that. Or, as I spoke to multiple parents in this story, spacing out when you have kids. If you're worried about daycare services, so you might have 1 kid, wait 5 years, and then try to have the other. But by then you might be in your late 30s or early 40s, and it could be more challenging.
Do you think people are looking at that 3rd kid as a luxury these days in a way that they haven't before?
I think so, yeah. I think it, again, like as I mentioned in my own personal life, I don't know anyone who's trying for a 3rd kid, at least not off the top of my head. And again, this is people who really want families, who love family life. Many people feel that they're just stretched way too thin. And again, it's just, our world is just so different from, let's say, the families in the 1950s or even the 1980s. I think even demands of your job are changing, right? You can't always be offline. So I think even small things like that can really impact family planning.
What do you think the future of the big family is? Will baby number 3 now be seen as the new sports car, impractical, expensive, aspirational? Like, is this the new view on big families?
Maybe, yeah. But again, I feel like that one almost doesn't feel like as much of a consideration. Sometimes I think even having 2 is, this, wow, you really made it. You have it all. But yeah, I think baby number 3 is, almost beyond a luxury. It's I think for some people tough to imagine.
Julia Pugachevsky is a senior health reporter with Business Insider. Check out her article, The Millennial Case Against Having Baby Number 3. Julia, I appreciate you being on the show. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Coming up after the break, we all have that uncle who's pretty far gone believing in conspiracy theories. But climate conspiracies? Government control of the weather? Some of them are founded in partial truths. For example, the government has made attempts to control the weather. They just haven't done it well yet. So coming up next, a conspiracy analyst about what's real, what's nonsense, and whether a shadowy cabal can control the rain.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Not all meals are created equal. For instance, breakfast has the spicy egg McMuffin for a limited time, and lunch doesn't. McDonald's breakfast comes first. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Broadcasting intimate details and useless information from an undisclosed location in New York City. The Last Show with David Cooper.
They say everyone complains about the weather, but nobody ever does anything about it. Or do they? It's conspiracy of weather control, secret weather machines, secretive billionaires, a plan to dim the sun maybe. No wonder the conspiracy theories are flying, but how much of the public's paranoia is actually rooted in real government secrecy? It's Conspiracy Corner. We are joined by Professor of Conspiracy Studies at Humber Polytechnic to separate fact from fiction in the bizarre world of geoengineering. Nathan Radke, what a pleasure it is having you here.
Well, thanks for having me on.
And Tony Five, foreign correspondent, joins us as well for unknown reasons. Tony, welcome.
Thank you very much, David. Professor of everything else that Nathan doesn't cover, my friend.
Exactly. Professor of conspiracy and professor of everything else. We've got all our bases covered. Nathan, the weather has been strange lately. We got monsoons, we got earthquakes, we got weird stuff going on up there in the sky.
Yeah, I mean, the other day I woke up in downtown Toronto. It was about 35 degrees already. The sky was brown and smelled like mesquite. And I thought to myself, weather's getting, pretty weird. Now, there's been a lot of weather stories in the news lately. Some of them have been, actually tragic. Just in 2025, we had a winter full of storms and frigid temperatures. And then in March, down in the States, they had 100 tornadoes in a few days.
Wow.
In May, they had another 60 tornadoes in a few days. Tony, we were just hanging out in London. London has been absolutely cooking the last little while.
Heat waves, heat waves, heat waves. And I'm not talking about the Doritos, my friend. It has been absolutely unbelievable here. We in England are not geared up for the hot weather. We maybe once or twice see the sun. Most overweight men then take off their shirts, run around, and then that's it for the year. It's back to misery. But we've had weeks of extreme hot weather, 35 degrees in English units. I don't know what that is in American.
Your houses, your air conditioners, nothing's set up for it. And so you guys just suffer.
Guy, we don't have air conditioners. All houses in the UK, I would say a good 78% do not have the infrastructure for air conditioning. We just don't have them. It's not like it's a thing here. You pay for it to be done. And only, I would say in the last maybe 20 years, did cars come as standard with air conditioning. It never used to be a thing here in the UK.
Wow. So there's two ways to look at this. We could say it's the greenhouse gas effect. We could say there's variance in temperature and weather on planet Earth, unknown effects of climate change affecting the weather. But why believe the science when you can believe in weird, wild conspiracy theories, right, Nathan?
Bill Gates! Bill Gates!
Well, I mean, this is the thing, right? Whenever unusual things happen, there's a couple of ways we can go. We can either be careful and we can be thorough and we can get some studies done and we can look at the contributory causes of events. But this is hard to do with something like weather. Weather's an unbelievably complicated system. There's all sorts of variables that affect weather. Everything from El Nino to a butterfly flapping its wings.
El Nino, that was one of my ex-girlfriends.
The boy. That's what it means, the boy.
Huh.
Well, like, yeah, but like Christ. It's meant to be like a religious thing.
Oh, is it really? Is that what El Nino means?
Yes, but let's not get too off track.
I was going to call my dog that. Anyway, carry on, David. Carry on, Nathan.
I mean, I kind of want to go back to that, but we'll press on. And so this is the thing about weather, is that it's the ultimate example of something that we call chaos theory. And chaos theory, or the butterfly effect, it's this idea that tiny, tiny little changes in initial conditions, like a butterfly flapping its wings, end up having this outsized impact on eventual outcomes. This is why it's so hard to predict weather, because there's just so many tiny things that are happening all the time that end up having this big impact. And so because that's kind of frustrating, in the other way we can go, rather than trying to carefully analyze painstakingly all of the tiny little causes, we can just spiral off and start wildly speculating about the conspiracies that are deliberately behind the offense. And so, of course, which do you think we do?
Conspiracies.
Conspiracies.
Bill Gates.
They're fun. They're exciting. They're easy to believe. They make them understandable, you know?
They're short. They're pithy. They're shocking. They're easy to spread around.
Bill Gates.
But of course, right away, there's like a significant problem with any weather control related conspiracy. It goes back to chaos theory. The same forces that make it really, really difficult to accurately predict the weather make it much, much, much harder to directly control the weather. But it doesn't stop us from seeing conspiracies in the clouds. And in the last little while, a lot of weather conspiracies have been kind of making the rounds in the world of social media, but even in the halls of government.
But there is an element based in truth. Like, what are the conspiracy first? Like, what are the worst ones? And like, tell us like where they come from.
Well, I mean, one of the ones that's been making the rounds, I know that you guys have heard of this one, the idea of the chemtrail. That the little white cloud lines we see trailing behind commercial airplanes are actually mechanisms for population control or mind control or weather control.
The classic photo that gets thrown around is this plane with these gas tanks in it or these tank-looking things. That photo, though, is just a test airplane, and those tanks are water so that they can shift weight throughout the airplane. That photo that, like everyone says, is evidence that there are these tanks on planes is really just a plane testing shifting of weight. What is some of the evidence, other than that one, that people seem to think chemtrails are real because of?
Well, the main one is that people look up into the sky and they say, hey, I can see a thing.
It's that simple.
But obviously there's a ton of problems with this hypothesis. I mean, the biggest problem is that we have an explanation. We have an explanation for why we see those white lines in the sky, and that is the internal combustion engine produces water vapor. And so in cold temperatures, say, for example, high up in the sky, that creates contrails. And that's completely explainable. There's all sorts of other issues too, like the weight of commercial aircraft is something that you have to get down to almost like the ounce in order to make sure that you can take off and land safely. To have just sort of unaccounted for tons and tons of some kind of odd material in your plane would be something that pilots would notice. Like, you have no control over the people who are working on your plane, the mechanics at airports, like the sheer amount of people who would need to be in on it. All of these things are a problem. And interestingly, Edward Snowden, before he left, he did a little search in the archives about chemtrails and said that there was absolutely nothing in there about some kind of secret program that the government was doing.
In the NSA.
Snowden, of course, being the guy who leaked those NSA files. And so, you know, he had a vested interest in leaking secret government documents. And if he couldn't find that, that's also evidence that nothing's there. However, people still tend to believe these things.
Or, David, he wasn't very good at Excel and the search histories.
That could also be a plausible explanation.
Thank you.
But influencers talk about this, politicians talk about this. This one seems to not go away. I mean, there's even laws about weather modification being made that are just kind of confusing because there's no conclusive evidence that weather modification exists.
Yeah, and of course, there's always the question with any kind of influencer or politician, is this something that they legitimately believe, or is this some kind of energy that they are trying to tap into to get their base riled up? I think for some of them, for example, Marjorie Taylor Greene is one who has recently come out and talked about chemtrails. Famously, she's also talked about space lasers.
We all know about the space lasers.
We all know about the space lasers.
I like her.
But also RFK Jr., Danielle Smith, the Premier of Alberta, and then also non-politician influencers such as Marla Maples. A lot of people have come forward and said, hey, look at the sky. This is ominous. This is dangerous. They are trying to control us. Although, again, it seems weird that they would be doing this in this like ridiculously complicated fashion where poisoning the water would be easier. Like trying to introduce something into the environment from 30,000 feet up out of the back of an airplane would be one of the worst possible ways to do it.
What is cloud seeding?
Well, I mean, this is something that is real. I mean, and that's what makes this more complicated, of course, because there are some genuine attempts and scientific experiments going on. And unfortunately, some of those have been done away from the public view. And in a situation like we have now, where people are amped up and fired up on conspiracy theory, that's just a recipe for absolute disaster. So maybe what we should do now is we should talk about some of the actual attempts at weather modification that have been done and some of the secret plans that have been hatched.
If we could control the weather, that would be great. And so governments, universities, they have a vested interest in studying this stuff. But when they do, those studies get swirled around with conspiracy theories. We'll talk about those, including an Air Force paper that acknowledges these attempts. After the break, it's Conspiracy Corner. Nathan Radke is here. Foreign correspondent Tony Five is here, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
On WhatsApp, no one can see or hear your personal messages. Whether it's a voice call, message, or sending a password. To WhatsApp, it's all just this. So whether you're sharing the streaming password in the family chat or trading those late-night voice messages that could basically become a podcast, your personal messages stay between you, your friends, and your family. No one else. Not even us. WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone.
Broadcasting from the intersection of chaos and more chaos. The last show with David Cooper.
And we are back. It is Conspiracy Corner. Foreign correspondent Tony Five is here because he is a conspiracy theory himself, probably.
In all fairness, David, my 5 o'clock got cancelled, my 6 o'clock got cancelled. I didn't have anything between 5 and 6 o'clock anyway, so, I don't know what time it is now, but I'm not there.
And Nathan Radke, co-host of the Uncover Up podcast, a great podcast about conspiratorial thinking and conspiracy theories. Check that out wherever podcasts are heard, seen, viewed.
I'm mostly heard.
Nathan, welcome. They say everyone complains about the weather. There are people that think the government is trying to do something about it. That is what we are discussing, the conspiracy of weather control. Nathan, some examples of legitimate attempts or secret attempts to control the weather are out there. And while none of them work, many of them are inconclusive. Any kind of inklinked, is that the right word? Inkling? Inklinked?
Inkling?
That's the one. Any kind of inkling the public gets that someone is trying to control the weather, some influencer or some politician will run with it and say, hey, there's a conspiracy there. So what are some of these actual weather manipulation attempts that have existed over the years?
Well, back in 1996, there was a U.S. Air Force research paper titled Weather as a Force Multiplier, Owning the Weather in 2025.
Oh, boy.
Now, I mean, come on.
Yeah, I believe it already with a title like that.
Yeah, and here we are in 2025, and it seems like the weather's owning us. And so here's a quote from it. While some segments of society will always be reluctant to examine controversial issues such as weather modification, the tremendous military capabilities that could result from this field are ignored at our own peril. From enhancing friendly operations or disrupting those of the enemy via small-scale tailoring of natural weather patterns to complete dominance of global communications and counter-space control, weather modification offers the warfighter a wide range of possible options to defeat or coerce an adversary.
Whoa.
And I mean, think about it. Think about what an amazing weapon weather control would be on a bunch of different levels.
So if I were a government, I would at least research it, and I might keep that research secret because I don't want my adversaries to know about it. Doesn't mean they can do it. But the fact that this research may or may not exist, and there are some papers that have been released acknowledging it, I could see why people would find that worrisome.
Yeah, and what an extraordinary weapon it would be. I mean, we've seen how destructive weather can be with storms and fires and things like that. And the other thing that this weapon would give you is something that, like the CIA has been looking for its entire existence, which is a way to do things while at the same time pretend that you haven't done them, giving you plausible deniability. Plausible deniability.
That's the name of Tony's ex-girlfriend.
It is. But I love the idea that you guys are sort of focusing on the extreme weather, the typhoons, the tornadoes. But in England, you just have to have some light drizzle and we all fall apart over here. Like, it can just be a sprinkling from a garden hose and like our trains stop working, people just call in sick. It's like Armageddon. But for you guys, it's like super extreme. It's like tornadoes, hurricanes, nails, like goats flying around. It's that sort of thing over there.
I mean, it's true. If you wanted to completely incapacitate London, all you would have to do is generate like a partly cloudy, nice day, and then every one of the Londoners would take to the streets with their stripe-head chairs and just lie around all day.
And talk about it, and like nothing would get done. Like, it got to 35 degrees here. The majority of news, despite all the wars in the world, all the death and famine and destruction, was how hot it was and how we couldn't cope.
What is sea spray? Tell me about that program.
Well, this is another one of those things that really, really happened. And it's another one of those reasons why we have to be sympathetic to people who say, hey, I think the government is up to shady things, because occasionally the government, in fact, kind of often, the government is up to shady things and not telling us. So in the 1950s, the U.S. government had a question. Could you use bacteria as a weapon against a city's population? And they thought, the best way to do this is what if we just sprayed a city with bacteria? And so one morning off the coast of San Francisco, there was a Navy destroyer, and from that destroyer was pumping out this strange cloud, and that strange cloud floated over the city of San Francisco. And what they were using was what they claimed was a harmless bacteria. And the reason that they used it is because it was bright red. And so it would be easy to then track it as it moved through the city, and you could tell, oh, okay, this is how effective it was. Here's some of the areas it showed up more. Here's areas it showed up less. Here's how the wind affected it. But after they did it, and of course they did it without telling anybody, without asking for any permission, without giving any informed consent, after they did it, hospitals were saying, hey, this is weird. People are showing up with these odd infections all of a sudden.
Trusting the government to spray you with a cloud of harmless red bacteria is worrisome.
It is worrisome, especially when one of the people who had one of those infections died. And when they cut him open, his insides, as you would expect, were bright red.
Oh, great.
Wow. I mean, there must be remnant. When did this happen, Nathan?
This was in the early 1950s.
Wow. So how long must it have been sort of stayed in the air and on people's clothes and on people's bodies and on people's buildings and stuff like that? This sort of and what was the bacteria?
I don't remember the name of the specific bacteria. I mean, you can look it up because all of this has been declassified since. It was declassified in the 1970s, which is sort of when the CIA and the FBI and all these three-letter agencies got a little bit found out for the stuff that they were doing in the 50s and the 60s. But it does show you that like these kind of experiments have happened. There was some similar experiments in New York where bacteria were put into light bulbs and dropped on New York subways to see if that would be an effective method of carrying out an attack on an urban population. This stuff has happened. And so then when we have something like the recent University of Washington plan to go off into the Pacific Ocean and create clouds, when something like that comes out into the media, obviously people are going to lose their minds about it.
Nathan, I'm not being a conspiracy theorist, but you mentioned two cities in the States, San Francisco and New York City. Now, just to double check, David, where have you lived in the past two locations in America?
Just coincidentally, San Francisco and New York City, yeah.
Wait a second.
Right.
Uh-oh.
Exactly.
Uh-oh. Yeah, no, so when people believe in these things and they have this evidence of shady behavior in the past and it kind of matches up, we kind of get it. And so people are worried that the University of Washington is the hotbed for this technology that the government's going to then use to create natural disasters and typhoons and hurricanes and tornadoes in cities and destroy them. Like, is that the thinking?
That's the thinking. I mean, the plan, according to the University of Washington, was to see if clouds could be created in order to reflect sunlight back out into space and potentially reduce global warming. Of course, if you have a population who believes that global warming is already a hoax, that explanation is going to appear extremely suspicious. And there's been a lot of negative response from local governments, understandably, who pointed out that there hadn't been enough consultation from the community. And again, looked at things like sea spray. Like this kind of experiment in this social climate, if you don't do it completely transparently and in full consultation with the local population, it's just going to cause more conspiracism and paranoia.
And honestly, even if you do, it might cause conspiracism and paranoia. That's a new word for me, conspiracism. Word of the day. Write it down, Tony. Big takeaways here, like, is the general position from you as someone who studied and analyzed this thing just that we don't know enough to make claims yet, but who knows what's going on? Or is it, no, we can't control the weather. It's all hogwash, as Tony might say.
I mean, we can't control the weather, but we can do things that, like, change the weather. In fact, we can't help but do things that change the weather. But we have to be a little bit humble. And this is something that conspiracy theories provide for us, I think, is that they provide the illusion of control, that somebody somewhere is in control of all these things that happen. And when we have terrible floods that drown children, or we have wildfires that destroy entire cities, we want some kind of explanation for that. And in some ways, it's more soothing to us if it's actually a deliberate plan rather than just the chaos that surrounds us.
Check out Nathan Radke's podcast, The Uncover Up Conspiracy Cast. Nathan, what a pleasure it was having you on the show. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me on. And Tony, always a pleasure.
I believe everything.
I want to believe. Tony Five, foreign correspondent in London, England. Tony, thank you as well.
Thank you very much, David. Bye, Nathan.
Bye.
Coming up next, we'll talk all things sex and what you do when you don't like your friend's significant other, like they annoy the heck out of you. And we all know someone who won't leave that messy relationship and you lose patience with them. Those are some of the topics we'll explore with you after the break.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold! Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
It's time for Sex Etc. with Samantha Bitty. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Wow, we are here with Samantha Bitty, sexual health and consent educator. It is Sex Etc. And first of all, Samantha, welcome.
Thank you so much, David.
My girlfriend Miranda has a friend who will remain nameless, and this friend and I have widely acknowledged to everyone we know that we don't like each other. And do you know how we treat each other? Perfectly well. And I think that's generally the rule when you don't like your partner's friend. But it doesn't always work out that way, does it?
Your partner's friend. I was thinking about your friends' partners. I think it goes both ways, right?
It does. It does. I just mean not everybody gets along, and you might have a best friend and their partner annoys the F out of you. Mm-hmm. How do you handle that? Because if you say something, that's their serious relationship. It might not go so well. You can't stand to be around them. They annoy you. How do you navigate this stuff? Are there general rules? I know every situation's different, but are there general things that you think about this?
Yeah, I do. I think to put it into some context, it depends where you're at in life. You know, I think that when you're in your 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s, how you approach this is going to be different, just in terms of the ways in which ideally we grow up and we tend to have friends that are more aligned with us, like in principles and values and spirit. We hopefully have partners who are more aligned with us in principles, values, and spirit. And so it's probably less of an issue as we get older. Again, ideally, not necessarily. And also, I think that the people that we choose to be in partnership with and friends with, those relationships have a longer lifespan as we get a little bit older. Even after partnership, like even you get divorced or you break up, chances are this person might still be in your life in some capacity. And so how we approach this is going to be different based on those things.
Have you ever had a case where you just can't stand a partner's friend, but you are a significant other rather, but there's no good reason, like it's just oil and water? This is the friend that I'm thinking about right now. I actually in my way like her. Everything she says annoys me, and I'm certain everything I say annoys her.
Are you the same personality?
Maybe there might be overlap. Of course, the things we hate in other people are often the things we hate in ourselves. I understand that. Maybe that's it. Maybe we're the same archetype or similar enough that she annoys me because really I annoy me. But that's for a therapy session.
Sure.
But yeah, I have a really strong principle here that you can't cross that boundary. Because then you're putting yourself between your friend and their significant other, and you're forcing a choice that you shouldn't make a friend make, especially if this person's just a normal human being who's nice and you just happen to not like them.
Yeah, they're not toxic or causing harm, or which also happens, right? When our loved ones are in cycles with certain friends and we're like, why are you friends with this person? My advice tends to always be the same in this area, in that boundaries are important, and there is a difference between privacy and secrecy. So you may keep it private that you're not a huge fan of your partner's friend or your friend's partner, and that's not necessarily a secret. Will it be helpful or beneficial or not just completely self-serving to let your partner or your friend know about your distaste for this person who's important to them? And you can just be boundaried around and limit the interaction. Now, if you're in a situation where your partner has this person over at the house all the time and you live in the house and you're cohabitating, where you have forced exposure, then that's a little bit different. You might need to navigate it a bit more directly. But I do think that there is merit in just being yeah, I'm not gonna come out to the thing, enjoy yourself. And then, as you said, just behaving perfectly civilly when there are those shared spaces, a birthday party, a wedding, a dinner. And that for some people, the enmeshment and integration of their friends and their partners is really important to them. Right. And it can signify a relationship escalation or a commitment thing of, well, you don't want to meet my friends or you never want to hang out with my friends. And I think if it's causing tension between you and your partner, or on the flip side, where a person is you don't acknowledge my partner as being real in my life or whatever that case may be, then I think you can navigate a different type of conversation where it's love them for you, don't love them for me, no judgment. It's just like you said, it's just we don't really vibe, so I'm gonna keep it. But if it's important to you, if it's really important, then yeah, you might extend yourself a little bit to be more present, but you don't need to kiki and be for best friends and be in the group chat and whatever it is. Your partner and or friend need to also understand that you are an autonomous being that is entitled to the dignity of who you want to spend your time with.
I know it's not necessarily good advice. Sometimes what I'm about to say is bad advice, but every teacher in elementary school said, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. Is that a good kind of rule to use here? Don't talk your friend's partner to them. It's going to go awry. There's so much that can go wrong and very little that can go right.
Something nice is subjective. Sometimes people might think I'll speak for myself. Some people might think I'm judgmental, for example. I'm not judgmental. I actually am quite non-judgmental as much as like a human person can be, but I am discerning and I do value my time and my energy and the way that I invest in certain spaces, places, people. And what I might think is just a general observation may be experienced or interpreted as, not nice or mean or hurtful. I don't run into this a lot. I'm not a monster, but I think that the question that you can ask yourself before you say something is, what are my motives for sharing this? What am I seeking?
Yeah.
Am I trying to manipulate some thing in their relationship, or am I perhaps trying to address something that I'm dissatisfied with in my partner or my friend? And I am using this other person's behavior as a vessel to be like, oh, I really don't like how they XYZ, but really it's like a pointed thing at your partner or your friend. So what am I seeking? And if you're seeking if it's some self-serving motive that could be hurtful, yeah, maybe like zip it.
Keep it to yourself.
Talk to somebody else about it.
Yeah, talk to your significant other about it if you've got one. Yeah, I just, back from that lens, like, what do you have to gain for telling somebody that their partner is someone you don't like? What do you hope to gain from that conversation? Because most ways of looking at it, the response, the outcomes are at best neutral, at worst highly damaging. I love that you said, I'm not judgmental, I'm just discerning. I'm not short, I just don't have the height of other people out there, Samantha.
I am not impatient. I just don't have the same serenity as others.
I just don't like waiting.
I have a dislike for waiting.
I am with you. You know what? It kind of makes sense. Sometimes your friend isn't just dating someone who is objectionable to you. Things can get messy, like toxic patterns, unhealthy things. How many times can you have a friend come to you and complain about the behavior of their significant other before that sympathetic ear turns a little less sympathetic? Under what circumstances should you be loyal? Under what circumstances should you not? That is what we're going to discuss here with Samantha Bitty when we come back from the break. It's messy relationships and discussions around them. Samantha, I feel like I represented what we're going to talk about next, all right? Probably.
You crushed it. Yeah.
What a nice thing to say. Sex, etc. We'll be back with Samantha Bitty in a second.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
At Sierra, you'll always find apparel, footwear, and gear for 20 to 60% less than department and specialty store prices. But right now, it's clearance time, so you can save even more on everything you need to get active and outside. Visit your local Sierra store today.
It's time for Sex, Etc. with Samantha Bitty. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
It is Sex, etc. Samantha Bitty, sexual health and consent educator, is here when your friend won't leave a messy relationship and they come to you and complain about it. Or maybe they break up, they vent about it, they say, I'm so happy without this person, and then they get back together with them. How many times can you observe that cycle before you lose your patience? That's the great question we'll explore. Samantha, welcome back.
Thank you.
I've had this, and it's one of those things where it's like, you got to be careful what you say when your friend's venting about a breakup, because when they get back together with them, they're going to hold those negative things you validated against you. That's happened to me. It's like, oh, you broke up, you vented about your partner to me, I agreed because I didn't like them, now you're back with them, and you're somehow mad at me. Has that ever happened to you?
I mean, I'm sure. I tend to stay in my lane around these things. If someone is in the cycle, if they're going through the life cycle of a relationship over and over and over again, I err on the side of, looking at the person who I'm in relationship with. I might invite them to reflect on what's happening for them. And if it is solicited, I may observe someone else's behavior like, the person that they're in this cycle with. And ultimately staying neutral about someone that a loved one is involved with when it is just the mess of incompatibility and not anything like nefarious happening, I think you can just be like, okay, like seen and heard. It does get exhausting though when someone stays in and it's over and over and over again and you're holding all this space for them and they're crying or when they're in the dopamine high of it, they're all they want to do is talk about it and you're just like, oh my gosh, like can we write characters who don't just talk about their relationships, as someone who talks about relationships for a living? And that's where we as individuals can be boundaried and set limits. Like even, I'll give you an example from my own life. Jacob, who is my emotional support ex, we love each other deeply. We're very open about our relationships. He bears witness to all of my f***ery, and we'll be having a conversation and he is super available to hold space for these things. But at a certain point, he will signal to me, I think I only have about 3 more minutes to talk about this.
Boundaries.
He will establish that boundary and I'm like, okay, thank you. I'm going to use this 3 minutes to conclude or whatever. And sometimes it means you have to, if you're the person who's like, I can't shut up about this. I am in this cycle. I personally am making choices right now that are this. There are certain people who are so off limits for me to talk about it with. Like I have to find a whole new batch of people who are willing and able to hold space for this process. And that I think too. So it's like us as individuals, we have to be, or we can be, or I invite people to be boundaried with their friends in a loving way. Like, I support your choice to do whatever it is that you want to do. We're all going to do what we want to do until we're done doing it. However, I don't think I have the space to like hear about this right now. Let's circle back, whatever. And then as the person who's doing the f***ery, we have to practice self-awareness as I'm illustrating where, I am not going to talk to Jacob about choices I made last night. I do not believe that I think I've drained the bank account. Like we have
Yeah.
we have reached the limit of my spending there. And thusly there are others who will be tapped to have this conversation.
I want to spill some wisdom from my mom. I don't actually agree with it, but I think there's a lesson here. And I think it's wisdom you can take sometimes and not other times. She says you should never unload your problems with your significant other, your messy problems, on your friends, because you'll forgive them eventually because you love them. But your friends will stay angry that your significant other did that to you. I don't always like it. I think it might be protecting your significant other from, broadcasting bad behavior. I don't think we should change names to protect the guilty. Having said that, I do think there's a little wisdom in there. Be careful what you unload onto your friends about the people who are close to you, because you'll forgive them, but your friends might not because they don't love them like you do.
I have 2 thoughts on this. The first thought is it comes back to that thing I said about privacy and secrecy. I believe that there is merit and fidelity in keeping certain things within a relationship private, because you're not just sharing your experience, you're disclosing things about your partner to others that they don't necessarily consent to. And again, this is under the umbrella of when things are not like harmful, right? I also think that as individuals who receive information about our friends' partners, that we too can practice the emotional intelligence of seeing other people as whole and be supportive to our friend whilst also understanding that their partner is also a complex being and we're only hearing one side of a story, and that we don't have to determine the character of another person. Like we can also be balanced and loving and tolerant, unless it is something harmful, right? That thing of like when someone is in an abusive situation, and that can be emotional, physical, sexual, whatever, financial, that there is a culture of isolation that happens. There is a notion of like, don't tell anyone, this is between us. when it's happening to us, like I'm a survivor, and I've had this experience of like, I don't want to tell people because I'm experiencing shame and embarrassment. And also if I tell someone, then it's in the open and I'm going to have to change and I'm not ready to change and whatever else. I think that's a different scenario. And the skill set that we can employ or deploy as friends and loved ones is very different than the thing of like, I just don't want to hear about this anymore.
Yeah, we're talking about how when your friend has a messy relationship and you lose your patience because you're sick of hearing it and they break up and they get back together. What we're not discussing is when domestic violence is in play, and that's a totally different thing, and they should not be confused. They should not be conflated.
Mm-hmm. And in that situation, I think that as people, when we receive what we call disclosures about these things, our first instinct is to fix and protect, right? Like that's the thing that comes up for us. And what we can actually do in those situations is make sure that we are not further isolating the person that we love by expressing judgment or telling them what to do or trying to intervene.
Making demands.
Or ultimatums like, well, I can't, how can you let someone treat you like this? Like, there's so many layers and nuance that we couldn't capture in like the minute and a half we have left. But my like very practical approach is to put your friend at the center of your approach, which is make sure that you stay a safe space for them to share what's happening and that you ask them what they need. My mentor and loved one, Farah Khan, developed a very simple tool. You can find it online. It was actually just in the Globe and Mail, I believe, and it's called like the BRAVE method. And it's an acronym that represents the steps of how we lovingly receive disclosures. And the first part of it, or what it all kind of culminates in, is this idea that people who are in these situations, when we're outside of it, we can have all of these feelings of our own, all of these judgments of our own, all of these instincts of our own. But the most important thing we can do, as I said, is remain a safe and neutral space and ask these questions of like, how can I be supportive to you? Because what happens when we aren't supportive, when we're judgmental, when we try to intervene, is that we're actually participating in the harm because we're further isolating someone who needs, at the very least, a witness.
Samantha, thank you.
Thanks, David.
Samantha Bitty, sexual health and consent educator. Coming up next, it's all things pet with Pet Talk or Vet Talk. I still don't know the name of what we do here. But we'll cover an interesting story linking dog breed and environment to its health, its obesity. Scientists have discovered that certain breeds of dogs are more motivated by food than other ones. We'll tell you what those are and cover more stories dealing with our furry friends after the break.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
At Blinds.com, it's not just about window treatments. It's about you, your style, your space, your way. Whether you DIY or want the pros to handle it all, you'll have the confidence of knowing it's done right. From free expert design help to our 100% satisfaction guarantee, everything we do is made to fit your life and your windows. Because at Blinds.com, the only thing we treat better than windows is you. Visit Blinds.com now for up to 45% off site-wide, plus a professional measure at no cost. Rules and restrictions apply.
We're broadcasting relationship truths and scientific discoveries with a comedian's touch. The Last Show with David Cooper.
We are back with Vet Talk or Pet Talk. The name of what we do here is unknown, but we are here with animal expert Dr. Cliff Redford. Check out his podcast, Vet Life with Dr. Cliff, available wherever you eat your podcasts. Cliff, welcome to the show, my friend.
Good to have you. Nope, good to be had.
Oh. English, how does it work? No one knows.
How does it work? I speaks well.
I had a pet psychic on my show yesterday, and I'm a skeptic. I don't believe in that stuff. However, I actually think they're great and helpful because a friend of mine went through an experience with one. And first of all, I want to know what your opinion is of these people who come in. They say they're going to help you and your animal, whether living or dead. And you pay them and they provide a service. And I'm sure you've heard of these people before.
I've heard of them, and there's a whole group of, the vast majority of them I think are charlatans. I think a lot of them feel that they're helpful. So I guess they're not charlatans if they're in denial as well, but
yes, I think most of them have sincerely held beliefs that what they're doing is real. Like they don't think they're lying. You know, they sincerely believe what they're doing.
I had a person continuously reach out to me at my clinic wanting me to start advertising their service to my clients. First of all, their service, if it worked, would make animals healthier, which, I mean, I'm for that, but why would I recommend another service other than mine? But second, not only were they doing crystal healing,
oh boy,
but they were doing crystal healing over the phone.
Yeah, no. This one I was talking to said she could do a reading over Zoom. She just needs a picture of the pet. A video is better.
Yeah. So look, if someone was a animal psychic or that was their label, and they came to you and they communicated with your dog or your cat or your gecko or your fish, and they sort of helped you with behavioral issues, I'm 100% for that. There are dog whisperers and horse whisperers and whatnot. But if they're coming and talking to your deceased pet over across dimensions and helping you finally figure out why Fido kept chewing on your shoe, I don't know.
You don't buy it?
I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I don't pay for it. I don't support it. If you want to do it for entertainment value, that's one thing. But if you're actually, you need a therapist, and that's okay to say that. You need to talk to somebody because you're having trouble saying goodbye to your pet.
On a rational level, and before this story I'm about to tell you, I completely agree. As a skeptic, I don't believe any of this stuff. I believe in psychics being, correct and it working and then tapping into the next dimension and the dead about as much as I believe in Bigfoot. I'm not outruling Bigfoot's existence. I'm just saying I would need some pretty compelling evidence to prove that Bigfoot was out there. A couple coincidences that you're surprised that the psychic got correct. That's not enough for me. I need extraordinary evidence to prove this claim. But here's why I think they're okay. A friend of mine lived in a roommate situation, and then she moved in with her boyfriend, now husband. The cat belonged to the roommate, and the roommate was not a great cat owner. And so my friend was in love with this cat. And yet when she moved, she even asked the roommate, "Can I take the cat?" The roommate said no. She needed to do something. She was distraught. So she paid for a pet psychic session where the psychic, the cat, and the person leaving the cat, my friend, had a session. And my friend the whole time said, I know this is BS. I know this person's not psychically connecting with the cat. But the therapy that I got from it, from the psychic saying, oh, the cat's going to be okay when I'm gone. And the cat wants you to go. And the cat wants you to move on with your life. And the cat's going to be just fine, was so therapeutic for my friend who was distraught over this situation. She knew it was BS. It was about $100, which is a lot of money. But she found it so helpful that how am I to knock this thing? It's helping people. It's not hurting any people. Now I think when some of these mediums are exploitative or take money from people that they don't have, that's where it crosses the line for me. But how could I look at that situation where my friend basically got closure after being distraught, having to leave a pet with a psychic? How can I look at that as bad?
Yeah, I mean, that situation, whether they're calling themselves a pet psychic, but they're really a therapist, and good on them. And they helped that person, and that person willingly spent the $100 with eyes wide open, and everything's dandy after that. I think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about whether or not they're being exploitive or not. And look, I mean, people smoke cigarettes, and I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, they're amazing cigarettes. As a former smoker,
There you go. But like the people who smoke cigarettes know they're not good for them. They know they're addictive.
Yeah, no, they're cool. They taste great. They make you feel great. The only thing is they kill you. It's just a small.
Well, I think they tell themselves they look cool. They tell themselves they feel great, but they know deep down inside they don't. So just like your friend, they know it's BS, and they're spending a whole lot more than $100 on a session, not even getting into their health. So there's the animal or the human health side from the non-human doctor. So I guess there you go. Pet psychics. It depends on why you're using them and what you're getting out of it. But some of them are charlatans, and some of them are just therapists for people that need therapy, which I support.
All right. Okay. So we're sort of in agreement here. But yeah, and obviously I think the mechanism by which these people claim to tap into spirits and energies and talk, obviously I think that's all BS. All right. Now, speaking of health, let's talk about canine health and dog breeds and environment and scientists who linked those things, breed, environment, to whether your dog is going to be a healthy weight or not. Cliff, science man, veterinarian, who got his degree out of a Cracker Jack box. Wow, I'm turning into my father. That is such a dad joke. What do you think of this study?
Yeah, and it really wasn't a study. It was more just an interesting or informative article, which is important. It was out of Texas A&M. And they said they did a study where they linked the dog breed, the environment.
Wait. It wasn't really a study, but they said they did this study?
Yeah, I mean, they were basically... Maybe it was metadata. Is that how you use the term?
Meta-analysis. That's when you...
They basically said, look, half of the U.S. dogs are overweight. And they started to recognize that it was related to food motivation. Big surprise. And that what they did find out is that the sporting breeds, Labradors, Goldens, some of the Spaniels, things like that, they're much more likely to be food motivated than other breeds and other dogs. They found that dogs that have sibling dogs are more food motivated, and it's basically a competition sort of situation, which is understandable. The interesting thing was they found that urban dogs are more likely to be food motivated and therefore obese. And it's simply because the urban dogs are sitting on the couch, and it's not that they're not burning calories. I mean, that's an obesity thing, but not a food motivated thing. It's that they're bored out of their minds. So, you got to exercise your dog. You got to intellectually stimulate your dog and give it a job. You got to give it a job, and then it'll eat less food.
Living in New York, seeing people who basically have wolves, like German Shepherds and other breeds that are gigantic, and knowing that they live in these tiny apartments in cramped urban spaces with parks that are either non-existent or very far, I think it's cruel. Your dog's size should be relative to the environment you can provide for it. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's cruel because people live in those apartments too. And people need intellectual stimulation and exercise just like dogs do. But it's not ideal, and people don't recognize it when the dog's a little bit of a puppy.
Dr. Cliff Redford is here. It's Vet Talk. When we come back, we'll talk dogs that can use their noses to sniff diseases. Amazing! Not just drugs at airports and stuff, or fruit at airports. That's another one. Cliff Redford is here. It's Vet Talk or Pet Talk. We're not clear exactly on the name. We'll be back.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
In the 70s, 4 young women were found dead. For nearly 50 years, their cases went cold. I'm Nancy Hixt, a senior crime reporter for Global News. In the season finale of Crime Beat, I share how investigators uncovered shocking evidence of a serial killer and hear exclusive interviews with the killer's family. Listen to the full season of Crime Beat early and ad-free on Amazon Music by asking Alexa to play the podcast Crime Beat.
Taste the forbidden fruit of knowledge. The last show with David Cooper.
We are back. How good is your nose? Would you be able to sniff out a disease in somebody's body? Probably not. But dogs can. We are here. It's Vet Talk. It's Pet Talk. It's so many things. And Dr. Cliff Redford is here. Check out his podcast, Vet Life, with, you guessed it, Dr. Cliff. Clifford, welcome to the show.
Thank you, David. Can you imagine going to your family doctor and saying, Doc, I don't feel very good. And he leans over and just gives you a good sniff in the crevices and says, I think you got prostate cancer, Dr. Cliff.
Oh, boy. That's where he's sniffing?
That's where he's sniffing.
I saw a video on the internet with that. Oh, that was something else. That's a conversation for someone else. And I don't think that was a real doctor, although he claimed to be. Okay, not important. I'm going off the rails.
Why wasn't he wearing pants?
He was surprisingly not, but it was hot. He said it was hot. He had to take them off. Okay, I was at the airport. I was at JFK. I had just flown in internationally. We hadn't cleared customs yet, or we just had, but people were getting their bags. And this customs agent with a cute little dog that had a little vest on that said, "Don't pet me." You don't want to pet a police dog. Side note, that's a conversation for another day. Okay, this dog goes up to a young woman, 20 years old, blonde, looked innocent enough, goes up to her suitcase, and the dog alerts on the suitcase. And I'm thinking in my head, I just watched a drug smuggling bust. This woman's life is ruined. I can't believe she smuggled drugs into the United States internationally. What am I witnessing? This is an insane thing. This is like out of a movie. This is really intense. She's going to do 25 to life. You can't smuggle drugs. This is what the officer then says to the woman after the dog's alerts. Do you have any fruit in your luggage? And she's like, yeah, I do have an orange. And they're like, come with me. You can't bring fruit into the United States. And then I realized these dogs can be trained to sniff anything. So I guess the next logical thing is diseases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they sniff out convicts. They sniff out
fruit smugglers.
I read they're talking about they sniff out human remains and burial sites. Really? I didn't see that on Indiana Jones, but okay. And then obviously these drug sniffing dogs, it's actually becoming more and more common too, that these drug sniffing dogs are not your classic German Shepherds and big Labradors. They're tiny little dogs, tiny little poodles, and they're equally as intelligent, arguably more so, more trainable, and they don't scare off the drug dealers or the orange smugglers.
Yeah.
So people are like, oh, look at the cute little dog. Is it training? And then all of a sudden you got 25 to life. But yeah, they can sniff out. We've known this for a while, that they can sniff out human diseases such as prostate cancer. I'm not sure where they sniff you to check out for prostate cancer.
The prostate.
They can sniff out malaria.
They probably sniff.
We know where they sniff you for prostate. Yeah, we got it.
Yeah.
And they can sniff out COVID-19, which would be a lot better than shoving the Q-tip all the way up to your brain to get that sample test. But can they sniff out human neurological disorders?
Wow, the brain, if my brain neurons are a little messed up or a little different, or I got a disease up there, they can sniff my brain?
They can sniff it out. These guys can now sniff out, or at least two of them could. Their names were Bumper, the golden retriever,
of course,
and Peanut, the Labrador.
Of course.
They were the only 2 out of the 5 dogs that made it through the study. And they were able to successfully, 80% of the time, that's a passing grade in vet school, so that's good, 80% of the time, accurately sniff out Parkinson's disease.
That's not a bad...
On a skin swab, yeah.
I like those odds.
That's pretty good. And Parkinson's, it's a dopamine production disorder. Your brain is no longer producing dopamine. You get the shakes, you get coordination, balance issues, that sort of thing. And so it's like, are they smelling the lack of dopamine on these skin swabs? Well, what I learned from reading this article, Mr. David, is that an early sign of Parkinson's disease in people is an increased production of skin oil called sebum.
Oh,
and so
sebum,
that's what
sebum. Oh,
sebum. They are detecting sebum.
That's not just like a dude who hangs out on a beach in California surfing and just crashes on couches and doesn't really have anywhere to live.
Bravo.
You're welcome.
Bravo. Yeah, you know what they call those here in Toronto?
No.
Lake bums.
Oh, lake bums. I like it.
Lake bums.
Yeah.
Or Dr. Cliff, if the waves are nice. So they're detecting sebum. So once you figure it out, it's like, okay, this is different. This is not a surprise then. Frankly, Bumper and Peanut, I would have thought you'd do better than 80% in detecting extra oil on skin swabs. However, that's better than me.
This study summary says they're 80% effective in accurately detecting whether they have it. They're 98% effective telling whether they don't have it. So the 80% they do, 98% they don't. What? How are those odds different?
Yeah, so they took 200 samples, 200 skin swabs, and they would basically train these dogs, and every time they correctly diagnosed Parkinson's, they got a treat. Anytime they ignored the sample that the person didn't have Parkinson's, they got a treat. So it was a classic positive reward, good training, good, reward system. And this 80% versus 90 whatever percent, I wasn't listening enough.
Great job.
If out of the 100 people that had Parkinson's, they accurately diagnosed 80%. They accurately put their right paw up or whatever it was.
Okay. So if they had it, they were 80% accurate. If they didn't have it, they were 98%.
They were essentially...
So the test should be not for having it. The test should be for not having it, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, I guess no one goes to the doctor and says, hey, test me to see if I don't have Parkinson's. You want to say, test me to see if I have, I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess you want either one.
I didn't realize that the medical test could have a different, percentage correct for...
Yeah, it's called sensitivity and specificity.
Oh, thanks, Dr. Cliff. Great.
One of them is the rate of false positives, and the other one is the rate of false negatives. So these dogs have less false positives than they do false negatives.
Homeboy reads one veterinary journal and he thinks he's a genius.
He thinks he's a doctor all of a sudden.
All right, Dr. Cliff Redford, let's do one last story. It's a feel-good one. Let us go to a dog that got adopted. This wasn't a young pup. I always go to always. I actually will not go to the shelter unless I'm planning on adopting, because I know one does not go to a shelter just to browse. I've learned that the hard way. That's the origin story of my cat. But there's all these old animals there, and you feel kind of bad for them. I adopted a bit of an older kitty, so I feel like I did a little bit of the right thing. I didn't get like a 2-month-old. I got like an 8 or 9-month-old.
So you're like a sidekick, not a true hero.
Yeah, I slightly did better than most people who adopt the adorable kittens. Mean animals, old animals, mangy animals, animals with medical problems. These are the fur babies that need adopting.
Yeah, but did you say mean animals?
Yeah, some animals are mean.
Yeah, I mean, yes. If you can handle, you need a pet psychic. If you can handle the mean animal, definitely adopt it. Yeah, this is a great feel-good story. It's out of Edmonton. Alana and Keith had lost their 9-year-old Saint Bernard. That's probably average for age for a Saint Bernard to pass away. And after a little bit of time of mourning, they started to go on to the Edmonton Humane Society website, and they saw this beautiful 10-year-old golden retriever named Mulligan. Oh, Mulligan, let's go for it a second try, Mulligan. That's why they named him that. And basically, they were going to adopt him, and then he got taken off the list because someone adopted him. Originally, the owners, they had to give him up because they were elderly and they couldn't take care of him anymore, and he had some health issues. And then he got adopted by someone else who brought him back and said he was too stinky. I mean, that guy's stinky. And then basically they adopted him, and he's a little bit overweight, and he's got a limp, and they've taken him to the vet, and he's the love of their life, and everyone now feels great. And it was a feel-good story. So,
Cliff, what a pleasure it was to have you.
Thanks, David.
You can find Dr. Cliff Redford on his podcast. Dr. Cliff Vet Life With is not exactly the name, but it's close. Cliff.
Close enough.
Yeah. Thanks again, buddy. Well, the program's over so soon, but guess what? You can listen to the entire show, any night of it, as a podcast. Just head to www.lastshow.pizza. That's lastshow.pizza, never.com. We don't like .com. And there you can find out more info about our podcast, including how to subscribe, or just search David Cooper Last Show on your favorite podcast app. All right, I'm David Cooper. This ain't the first show, and we'll be back tomorrow night.
Canada is best known for politeness, maple syrup, and hockey, but beneath the surface lies something far darker. I'm Mike Brown, and along with my co-host Matthew Stockton, we uncover the sinister side of Canada on the award-winning true crime podcast, Dark Poutine. Each Monday, we dive into chilling criminal cases, eerie historical events, strange disappearances, and spine-tingling tales of the paranormal, all with a uniquely Canadian twist. With over 300 episodes to binge for free, our stories reach far beyond Canada's borders, drawing in curious minds from around the world. If you're drawn to the dark, the mysterious, and the downright weird, it's time to join us. To explore the shadowy side of the True North, search for Dark Poutine, that's Poutine, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you're listening right now.